Hello, welcome to another Drive-In Double Feature podcast. I'm Ryan.
I'm Nathan.
And this is the podcast where we talk about 2 movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before I get into anything, we have a Patreon over at patreon.com/drive-in-double-feature-podcast. Just a fun little area where we have a couple of fun games, conversations between Nathan and myself, just as extra content to give to you patrons out there as a thank you for supporting us. If you choose not to support us, don't worry. It does not affect any regular content whatsoever. But today, we're going to be talking about 1982's Losin It. And that is directed by Oscar winner Curtis Hanson.
Oh, and it has a non-Oscar winner, Tom Cruise.
Yeah. And non-Oscar winner Jackie Earle Haley.
Yeah, he was nominated though. And then I doubt John
Emmy winner Shelley Long.
And John Stockwell.
Yeah. John Stockwell. Now this is a teen sex comedy pretty much. It's about these 4 young guys that end up driving all the way down to Tijuana to lose it, if you know what I mean.
Huh? Money?
Yeah, they go bankrupt.
I mean, kind of.
No, but they go down there strictly to lose their virginity because the first place they hit up is a whorehouse. But it's very notable because this is one of the launching points for Tom Cruise, because this guy, this is just his second year of acting in motion pictures, because he started in the movie Taps, where he actually had like a pretty notable role in that movie.
Yeah.
And then immediately following this, he got cast into this movie. And then after this movie, it was Risky Business and The Outsiders, which all 3 came out in the same year, which is very crazy to think about.
No, that is absolutely insane. And all of them are really, maybe not this one, but most of those other ones are huge hits, like still movies that people talk about to this day.
I was trying to think of somebody who had like a year like that, like a breakout year like that. And I was thinking maybe like Florence Pugh, maybe.
Yeah, the Midsommar year.
Well, yeah, it was 2019. It was like that movie, Little Women, and then she starred in It Runs in My Family or whatever, like Wrestling with My Family.
Oh yeah, Wrestling with My Family, yeah.
Yeah, so she was like a star in all 3 of those movies, and that was like the big breakout year where everyone's like, "Oh, Florence Pugh." But but no, this movie is not necessarily one where Tom Cruise is like very fondly remembered of. In fact, I think he would rather it be forgotten for the most part.
I don't even know how Tom Cruise would react if you brought up this movie.
I don't know, because I mean, for one, he looks very different. I mean, the like if you put a side by side of how he looked in Risky Business, The Outsiders, and this movie, you're like, that's the same guy. Like you would think it's like almost 3 different people. It's like, it's that insane.
No, it is insane. Like they definitely a lot of work went into his look. I was watching this, and he looks really young in this movie, like really young. And but The Outsiders is, I think, older than this, because that's before he got his teeth fixed and all of that. So I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, definitely he was ready to be a star, and they knew it, because he probably gets the most likable role in the movie, I'll say.
I was about to say, out of the boys, he's probably the most likable. He's the most down to earth, probably most like the one you most identify with, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. And then our other cast members, Jackie Earle Haley.
Oh my God, he is disgusting in this movie.
Horrible. I like, this is so weird. I mean, this is going into a lot of things, but this reminded me a lot of American Pie. This is like definitely like that stepping stone to that, where it's just a high school sex comedy. But I just couldn't believe that this movie is nasty. This movie's gross. And Jackie Earle Haley is a high schooler who's just he's just so horny, and like he does all these things with his little brother around for one.
Oh yeah, so that's how the movie starts, is that they're all four in high school. and they're trying to get ready. They're all talking about their big trip, and they actually had an original fourth that was going to go with them, but he got grounded, so he couldn't go.
Mm-hmm.
So they needed somebody else to fill in the spot. And luckily, his brother, who's like looks very, very young in this one. I think he says I think he was 14 at the time of filming this. John P. Navin. I mean, he looks like a little boy. I mean, that's the best way to describe it. And they bring him to Tijuana, but he's not going for sex or anything like that. He's a little entrepreneur type, and he wants to go buy fireworks to take back home with them.
Yeah, and one of the funnier bits is he's kind of I think the joke is he's the most adult out of all of them, because he like sells homework, and he's going there just to buy firecrackers to like upsell them when he gets back home.
Yeah, he actually has a funny scene, because once they get to Tijuana, they like there's a Mexican man that comes up to him, and he's trying to sell like a fake watch to him. It's like, oh, please, like, this is a real watch, solid silver. And he's like, yes, it's a family heirloom. And then he looks like, no, it's not a family heirloom. It's not just pure silver. And it's definitely not that brand of watch. And the guy's like, huh?
Yeah, it's like, huh? But of course his brother gets easily convinced that it's a real watch. One of the weird things, so just from the opening credits, this movie has a theme song. I think it's just called Losin It. It'll be the intro to the show, but I was not expecting that. And in this intro, we see all the boys getting their money together to go to Tijuana. Do you notice Tom Cruise has a hidden copy of Lolita hidden behind a bunch of other stuff, and his money is hidden in that? Yeah, that's what he has hidden, a copy of Lolita, which is a bit weird, man. I don't. Great book, but no need to hide it.
I mean, he's at least in high school in this movie, so it's not like
it could just be high school reading,
it could be, maybe. Let's hope for that.
Let's hope. But anyway, we get introduced to all these characters, and God, you cannot convince me that these three boys seriously are friends. None of them belong together.
That's kind of like the selling point of a lot of these like teen sex comedies, like something like Revenge of the Nerds or Animal House or something like that, where they at least like the camaraderie between like the boys is kind of the selling point, where it's like, oh well, they're friends, they're getting into hijinks, but they all just seem to like genuinely hate each other.
Yeah, no, they just seem to like hate each other's presence, like because Jackie Earle Haley's just really annoying. Tom Cruise is just kind of there for the ride, and then we have their friend Spider, who is just mean. That's like his
huge
trait.
Jerk. It's
He's
like
mean.
a huge. Yeah, I'm like, why are they even friends with this guy? Because like the whole point is Spider is the only one to have had sex before this trip, and but so he's constantly giving these other guys crap for not losing their virginity, and because of course like the one of the first places, like they said, they go to is a whorehouse, and they go in there and they all pick somebody, which is kind of a funny scene, because they're down in the bar, and it's like these three beautiful women show up, and they're like, oh, like, why don't you come up with us, like we'll go upstairs, have some fun. And then once they get upstairs, it's like there's women up there, and it's all like the older women, or like the women that don't look as attractive as them, and it's just like, it's like, well, what about the women downstairs? And it's like, no, they work downstairs. You got to work. You have fun with these women.
These are our women upstairs. Yeah, no, I thought that was funny, and they all get their picks, and they kind of choose the women, and Spider. So both Tom Cruise and Jackie Earle Haley get their scenes with their women. Spider doesn't. It's just like treated as, yeah, Spider slept with one of them. He had no second thoughts. He just went for it.
The funniest part with him though was the girl that he was with like clearly did not care at all, and he's like, oh, it's like, oh, I have to go get my condom, and he comes back and she's like, oh boy, I can hardly wait.
Yeah. And then the woman that sleeps with Jackie Earl Haley is also just like raising her
Hates.
price constantly.
Well, yeah, she hates Jackie Earl Haley, and because she says so. The movie's set in the '60s,
Yeah.
and she tells him, "All right, $10." He's like, $10, and he's trying to talk her down on the price, and he's like, oh, come on. What if Frank Sinatra walked in? You wouldn't charge him $10. She's like, well, you're not Frank Sinatra, are you? And the one running gag is that Jackie Earl Haley shoves a sock down his pants to make himself look bigger, and the woman, he's like, oh yeah, did all the other guys have this? And he shows like his huge bulge in his pants, and she's like, and everyone's like, whoa. And she's like, all right, $15.
Yeah, I like that. Just could care less that this man wants what he wants, and I guess he just gonna do that prize.
Yeah.
And a funny thing is like he talks about that, like if he screams while at climax, it will feel better. So there's this scene where he just screams, and everybody in the bar can hear it downstairs.
Yeah, well, the scene takes place downstairs because Spider had already went through it, and Tom Cruise's character kind of chickened out, and then Spider, what?
Well, we didn't even bring up Shelley Long's character, so
yeah, he chickened out, and then Spider was like, what, you didn't do it? Like, come on, man, like you're gonna be a virgin forever. And then as they're talking, you just hear a scream, and it's just Jackie Earl Haley.
Yeah.
And but no, yeah, we should mention that because before they get to Tijuana, they run into a grocery store, and it's Shelley Long fighting with this guy who turns out to be her husband, and I'm not really sure what they're fighting about, really.
It sounded like he looked at a woman, like he looked at another woman, and then she got angry about that and was going to go for a divorce. Kind of silly.
Yeah, well, she steals like the grocery van, and she ends up crashing it in the parking lot. And then while that's going on, they all steal the food, and she's just like, well, she just like hops in their car. It's like, I'm coming with you guys. And they're like, well, where are you going? They're like, Tijuana. She's like, you hear that? I'm going to Tijuana.
Yeah. I can appreciate that they threw Shelley Long in here. I do think that's a bit weird that Shelley Long is in this movie. I feel like she doesn't belong here, but she at least brings herself there, and I can always enjoy seeing her in a movie.
But you know what? So, I mean, when they arrive into Tijuana, she immediately is like, all right, I'm gonna go get a divorce from my husband at this quickie divorce place. But I actually really liked her storyline. Like, she actually has like the best part of the entire movie.
I think so. And I do think it's helped that it's just her, but yeah, I think she is the one shining light in this movie. I will say this movie has its funny moments. I didn't really like it all that much, but I think Shelley Long is the better part of this movie.
Yeah, because she's kind of going through this self-discovery where what I really like is it's kind of showing that she's a lot smarter and really independent, because when she gets there, she does speak Spanish, and that's revealed later in the movie. And also too, she's kind of going to like this grand gesture where she throws her wedding ring into a fountain, and then everybody rushes in trying to steal it, and then she steals it back. She's fighting off all those guys, which they get really rough with her at one point.
They like pull her hair back.
I really like the self-discovery part, but she does eventually meet up back with the guys at the bar.
Yeah, and that's when Spider starts treating her like garbage. Like, it's just really mean to her about her divorce. And Tom Cruise rightfully is like, hey, stop, you're being insensitive. Or no, she says insensitive, but they're like, hey, stop. But Spider gets pissy and leaves.
Well, the thing is, because Spider is such a huge jerk, because he's trying to sleep with Shelley Long too.
Yes.
And he's trying to like get with her, and she's clearly not having it. And then he starts making these really negative comments about her. And then when Tom Cruise tries to defend her, he he bites his head off. So at that point, Tom Cruise and Shelley Long go off to go have their own movie.
Yeah, pretty much. They do their own thing, kind of have a sweet little romance.
I didn't mind that. I actually thought it was pretty decent. Like
No, yeah,
some of their, I'm like the two best actors in this movie, and I'm like, you know what? I can see why these two ended up being stars.
exactly. It's obvious. It's obvious that they let these two go off and do their own thing because they were like the actual stars of the movie. Because like when I say like I don't really like this movie, it's like a lot of the other stuff, like Spider's plot line. Oh my god. First of all, he goes around asking about a donkey show. Like he's like, when's the donkey coming out? When are we going to get to see a donkey? Who actually wants to see something like that? Like what, who gets excited for something like that? It's so bizarre to me.
Well, I think, yeah, because that's kind of like the gag, I guess. Like when a lot of people go to
Mexico,
Tijuana specifically, it's like, where is the donkey show? But again, it's like I don't think that would be fun in the slightest bit.
But it's funny. I'm looking at the production companies for this movie. One of them is Tijuana Productions. So Tijuana itself is like displaying themselves as like, yeah, this is us. This is what's going on.
Yeah, but I heard a lot of that stuff too is kind of like a myth. Like there are like travel tips kind of like in this show where it's like because Jackie Earle Haley is constantly trying to figure out where he can get Spanish fly, and which is a fake aphrodisiac type of thing, and then the other stuff too, where it's like, oh well, don't get in your like. Jackie Earle Haley does pretty much everything you don't do when you go to a foreign country.
Yeah, he's supposed to be like the idiot, like American that doesn't know what's going on.
But he acts like he knows everything too.
Yeah,
and because the funny part is like you're not supposed to go get into like a stranger's car, like not even a taxi really, because they'll just like, take you somewhere and maybe rob you or whatever. But because Spider, he doesn't get in one, but there's one cab driver that's like, oh yeah, I got the best Spanish fly there is, I'll take you right over there. And before that though, they find a pharmacy and Jackie Earle Haley walks in there. He's trying to like explain. He's like, do you have any Spanish fly? And they're like, no speak English, sorry. And then he's like, Spanish?
But he's so bad. He's like Espanol fly. It makes girl go crazy.
Well, he just starts like air humping, and then the guy's like, "Oh, okay," and then he just pulls out a gun.
He pulls out a shotgun and runs him out of there. But yeah, the taxi driver ends up taking him to the pharmacy again, and just gets him some aspirin, which it leads to a horrible scene once again.
I hated this scene.
Yeah, where there's this girl he likes, in this character's way.
Yeah, they just show up to like this outdoor party.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, I like this girl," and she obviously wants nothing to do with him. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry I made a pass at you so hard." And she's like, I don't want anything to do with you. He just slips her some Spanish fly into her drink and is like, oh yeah, she's gonna be crazy for me in just a few moments. It's like, wow, what a horrible person.
This total like drug rapist. Like,
yeah, that shows you like what kind of person he's gonna grow up to be, like this character, especially the way he talks to his little brothers. Like, I need it more than any other man, and I'm crazy for this stuff. I'm just a nymphomaniac.
There's a funny scene though between him and his brother, because he keeps talking about sex, and he's like, man, I just have all this stuff on my mind right now. And his brother's like, what is it? You wouldn't understand. He's like, oh yeah, try me. Sex. Oh, and just
yeah. No,
because his brother is like a little kid and just doesn't care about any of that stuff.
Exactly. But I guess there's this gang that shows up with a really nice car, because Jackie Earle Haley also likes cars. Actually, that's a big part of this. He's getting it tucked and rolled at a shop, and everyone tells him that they're filling his seats up with horse manure.
Yeah, but that's the other constant running joke. They're like, because there's so many times where people are like, you don't want to go take your car there. They might stuff your car with horse manure, and they say that a bunch in this
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, a lot. Is this like a myth that gets spread around? Like I don't know. Never heard it.
Well, that's what I thought was going to happen because spoilers at the end of the movie, it doesn't get brought up again, even though it gets brought up probably like 4 or 5 times before this. So
Yeah.
I thought the joke, because at the end of the movie, jumping way ahead, they have to dismantle the car, and I thought it was going to be there was horse manure in there, but it wasn't. It was totally fine.
Yeah, that joke gets no punchline pretty much. The mechanic is just a nice guy. He seems like a pretty nice, decent dude. He even like gets somebody to drive the little brother to town to buy firecrackers. He's like, oh yeah, send him to town, get him some fireworks.
Well, yeah, because Jack, that's the other thing at the beginning of the movie when they drop the car off, they just leaves his little brother's like, you stay here and watch the car, and they just leave him with these 4 strangers.
Yeah, four strangers in a foreign country. Wow, all because he's just needs to sleep with somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, that plot line gets insane though, because the rival gang, or not a rival gang, I'm thinking of like the Warriors and the Wanderers, but these another group of people show up, and he slipped a drug to this guy's sister and was just willingly admitting it to him. So they like hang him up on like what do you even call that? Like at a junkyard on a crane by his underwear, and they're gonna throw him down onto a flamethrower and kill him.
Well, they did say they weren't going to kill him. They were whispering amongst themselves. He's like, no, we're just going to scare the hell out of them, type of thing. And but they keep threatening like they're going to kill him though. But they eventually do escape and they do drive away. But leading up to that, back with Spider's plot line, he like goes to like the bar that supposedly the donkey show is going to happen. And then there's these military guys there, and they end up getting into like a big fight. He gets thrown into jail.
Well, during that fight has one of my favorite lines from this movie.
Oh, go ahead.
One of the army men calls him the pussy, and his reaction is, "That's Mr. Pussy to you."
Oh yeah.
What?
I know. I was like, you thought that sounded way cooler in your head than it actually came out.
It's classic. But go ahead.
But yeah, because the part I like too is he goes into the jail, and there's this big dude there because he wants to just sit down anywhere because he's in a jail, and the guy, he just sits down and he's like, hey, you didn't ask me if you could sit there, and he's like, and he starts to sit down and he can't sit there either, and then the guy just like beats the crap out of him and then throws him down. He's like, okay, you could sit over there now.
But what's funny is this guy becomes like his friend later in the movie, because the army dudes roll in the jail and they're like, oh, we're going to kick his ass. There he is. He's right there. And the big dude's like, no, you don't mess with him. He's one of us.
He's like, you threatened my friend amigo. You can't talk to him. You talk to me.
Okay. I guess that was kind of funny. Just the fact that anybody could be friend with Spider is funny.
Well, because when he does get out of jail, Spider like looks back at the big dude, like at making sure it's okay that he's leaving. And the big guy's like, adios, amigo.
So funny. But during all this, Shelley Long and Tom Cruise have like actual tender moments. They like drink together. She talks a lot about her relationship, and they actually end up sleeping together. And it's not as gratuitous as I expected.
No, it's not gratuitous at all. It's very much like it's like these two people were looking for something and they found each other type of thing. And that's the part of the stuff that I think works a lot. And I mean, I know the whole movie is supposed to be like a teen sex type of comedy, but if they had just like foregone all those other plot lines and just made them like the focal point of the movie, I think it could have worked.
It would probably been a good movie, and probably not like one we would cover on Drive and Double Feature. It'd probably be a nice little love drama or something.
Yeah.
But
Even that though doesn't really have a good payoff either. That's kind of like has a really weird payoff. But
well, her character changes like very fast for whatever reason, because they're driving away. It all comes to the head. They all come and they're leaving because I guess during this whole movie, there's an evil cop that's kind of after them the whole time. Well, I want to talk about this. He's not really evil. He does take bribes and stuff, but these people are committing crimes, stealing cars, and he's sending them to jail, rightfully so. So I don't know. But Shelley Long sees her husband in Tijuana looking for her, and she's kind of just like, oh yeah, I still love him. I want to be back with him.
He goes into a strip club though.
Yeah, that's what's weird. Is like it felt almost like in the end he's like, yeah, I was looking for you this whole time.
Well, yeah, and when they eventually do get out of Mexico, I guess he does follow them to outside of the border, because then she's like, oh, there he is, there's Larry, and so before she goes over to her husband, she very passionately kisses Tom Cruise, and right in front of her husband too, and her husband is not like, huh, like what the hell, like type of thing,
not like angry or anything, and like she goes over there, gives him a peck, gives her husband a little peck, and then it's like, okay, let's leave. we're driving off. I was like expecting
that whole plot line just gets dropped.
Yeah, Joe Spinell shows up at this scene as well, because they go to U.S. The customs border, and they have to get pulled off to the side because because there's a huge line, but Spider's like, oh, I have nothing to do with this car over here. There's nothing, I don't have anything to do with what's in the car. So they pull him over.
Well, they did that though, so they would get to the front of the line.
Yeah, and it kind of ends like, the evil cop knows he's been beat, and he just kind of shakes his head and smiles like, that's it, and nothing I can do now.
Yeah, they got out.
And then it ends with the best gag. This gag gets a payoff. The sock in the pants. They ask him to whip out his thing, and he pulls out a just empty sock at the border.
Throws out his sock at the end.
Yeah, I think Joe Spinell sniffs it. Maybe no, I'm thinking that's right. No, Jackie Earle Haley pees on his shoes, and when he first goes into Tijuana, for whatever reason, the border patrol rubs the shoe, sniffs it, and goes, "Ugh!" Like, you didn't have to do that, dude. That's your fault.
I would sniff shoes like that.
If I saw shoes hanging off a car, I would not even get near them. I don't want to know what's on those.
That one, and when it ends, they go into they find a diner. Jackie Earle Haley has a goofy hat on, like this whole movie, where it's trying to look like Frank Sinatra, and he throws it out in the trash, and and then eventually there's the military guy, the army guys are there, and they just break out into like another fight in the middle of the diner, and that's how the movie ends.
That's how the movie ends, with the theme song playing. And then
and his little brother breaks the fourth wall and just like smiles at the camera.
Smiles and shrugs. Like, my God, that made me laugh out loud. I was not expecting anything like that. Like, oh, yep, that was the movie. What an experience.
Can I? I didn't bring this up, but can I tell you the funniest part of the movie for me?
Yeah, what?
There was one running gag which I thought was pretty funny, which was when they're at the brothel, the whorehouse. At first, it's like the one guy it's one of the army guys. He gets constantly interrupted having sex with one of the other prostitutes,
with the firecrackers and everything.
Well, yeah, because like at first, like Tom Cruise walks in, he's like, "Oops, sorry," and he's like, "Hey, get out of here!" And then they're like, "Oh, is Woody in this room?" I guess Spider's looking around. He's like, "Is Tom Cruise in here?" And he opens the door, It's like, oops, sorry. And the guy's like, get out of here. And he like throws like a vase at the door.
Uh-huh.
and then Jackie Earl Haley is like, oh, there he is. It's like, hey, Woody, here's your bang for your first bang. And he throws a firecracker. He's like, what the hell?
And then he like runs out like he's gonna kick it, like beat him up.
Yeah.
And but he doesn't. He goes right back in. This man's having a struggle to have sex in Tijuana. Poor fella.
That was Losing It. Nathan, would you give this a recommend?
Personally, no, I wouldn't give it a recommend. I don't know what it was. There's something about like, there are parts I liked and it was funny, but I think as a whole, there are bits that aren't really interesting. And like I said, these guys, I wanted camaraderie, friendship, and all I could tell was they hated each other and they didn't belong together. They need to get different characters. So personally, it's not a recommend. What about you?
I didn't hate it really. I mean, it's completely harmless in terms of quality. I mean, there are some very questionable stuff. There are some very unlikable characters and stuff, but it's not bad. I don't think I would give it a recommend because I don't know who I would recommend this to, but it wouldn't be a recommend for me, but I wouldn't say avoid either.
I guess that wraps it up for Losing It, right?
Yeah, that will do it. And so why don't we just talk about Nathan? What are we going to be doing next time?
All right. Well, Ryan, I know we usually talk about older movies here on the podcast,
and we still are, right?
Yeah, we will, but we have a week ahead of us. We're going to actually go see a couple newer movies. So we'll just get started with Tuesday. We're going to actually be talking about the movie Beast, which just came out last year. It's very similar to another movie we talked about not long ago. But that is streaming over on Amazon Prime.
All right. Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. If you'd like to continue the discussion, you can send us an email over at driveindoublefeaturepodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at DIDFpod. Don't forget to follow us on Patreon at driveindoublefeaturepodcast. But until next time.
Until next time.